friend Scott here, representing Youth Potential. Now, before I go on with this video, I'd just like to remind you guys that you can purchase a copy of my book, Self-Harm to Self-Harmony, which is available only on Amazon. You can get it in paperback form and you can get it in Kindle ebook form. Now, anyway, on with the video. So guys, recently I did a poll on my YouTube channel, which allowed you to vote for the next video that I would be making. And this is the video that I'm going to be making. It's a video about my personal journey with mental health. Now, I've already covered a lot of that in great detail in my book, Self-Harm to Self-Harmony, but that only kind of covers the sort of my teenage years going into my early 20s. But with this video, what I'm going to do is a short version of my entire journey leading right up until now. So guys, thank you very much for voting for that. This video did get 40% of the poll votes, so it was pretty clear what you guys wanted to see. So I really appreciate you guys voting and following me and everything. Thank you very much. So anyway, let's get on with it. So my journey kind of starts with my parents splitting up when I was 7, literally about a month before I turned 8. I didn't have mental health problems then, but what that did, my parents splitting up kind of paved the way for, you know, that was a kind of the root of the problem for when I did actually start experiencing mental health problems. So if we skip forward to the age of about 15, when I started to show signs of feeling depressed and I was having suicidal thoughts, that was kind of all rooted back to my parents splitting up, which I only discovered when I started having counselling, which I did at the age of 15. Also at the age of 15, before I actually started counselling, I had a bit of an argument with my mum one evening, and yeah, it all came out that I was feeling depressed and I was thinking about suicide. That then led to me getting counselling. So I went into counselling with CAMS, which is the Child Adolescence Mental Health Service. So I had my first counselling session. It was really awkward. Didn't really know what to kind of expect. I'd obviously seen a little bit of counselling in TV shows and movies, but the real thing is so much different when you're actually there talking to someone for the first time about your real dark and unpleasant feelings. It feels very strange, but it had to be done. So following that, and still about the age of 15, I had my first experience with self-harm. I was in my room one day and I was feeling quite stressed out. I picked up a pair of scissors. I'd heard about self-harm quite recently, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. So I grabbed these pairs of scissors. There was a long time between me thinking about it and me actually doing it. It was just there, me holding the scissors, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what would happen, what would come of it, other than the fact that it should relieve some tension from what I'd heard. So I did it, and it was such an unusual feeling, sensation, you know. It's just like I'd been feeling tense and my whole head was going up and down all over the place, so my emotions. And I just did it, and then silence. So from then on out, I come to finishing secondary school, and I went into the summer of 2006 thinking I just want to end my life. You know, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, and that played a big part in it. Also getting bullied and things in school, outside of school, it was really unpleasant. Wasn't getting along very well with any of my parents, my mum or stepdad or my actual dad, and I just felt like the whole world was against me and on top of me, and I couldn't handle it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start sixth form. That's going to be a front for the fact that I actually want to commit suicide. So I went into sixth form, and I wasn't getting bullied at sixth form because it was an all-girls school, and I was one of the few guys that went there because the sixth form was mixed. And I just went along, did what I could, just enough to get by so that I didn't get kicked out. But in the back of my mind, I was always thinking about ending my own life. By this time, I was self-harming quite regularly, sort of almost daily, and I was still in counselling. And then a time came where I actually decided to give suicide a go. Don't ask me why I did this. I messaged all my friends telling them what I was going to do. So I went out into my local town one weekend, and they all came to meet me because I wanted to say goodbye to them. And it didn't go how it planned at all. They basically followed me up until where I was going to jump off a building, and then they all pinned me down, stopped me, and grabbed a policeman that just happened to be walking by at the time. Sorry, a security guard, which he then took me to the police, a police officer that was on site at the time. Yeah, okay, I think it was definitely more of a cry for help than anything else. But what happened then, after I got speaking to the police, they took me to my stepdad, who was in the local town next to it, where I was. He wasn't very happy with what had happened. He was quite angry actually, so he took me home, came home to my mum. She was really upset. Obviously I had to tell her what was going on, and it was just so awkward, so awkward. I never felt like such an embarrassment in all my life. So after that weekend was out of the way, went back to sixth form, just tried to soldier on. I already had it in my head that I was going to give suicide another attempt. So a few months later, I went up to the same place where I was with my last suicide attempt, but this time I didn't have anyone with me, and I just hung around on the top of this car park for quite a while. It was about 5 stories high, I think, and I sat on the edge, and there was so much going through my head, like, should I do it? You know, is it going to hurt? Am I going to survive? Am I going to live? And I was just walking around this car park, going from like sitting on the edge to going back and walking around and doing star jumps. And I just had so much in my head, and I just felt so uncomfortable and anxious. I just had to burn off some energy. And eventually I came to the conclusion that I couldn't do it. So I walked back, and then as soon as I turned around, I was greeted with police, and my mum was also in the back of the car. My mum grabbed me, gave me a hug, and then we got into the car and then went back home. It was so awkward, but at least this time my actions weren't met with anger and frustration. It was more sympathetic and supportive. Then and there I decided I wasn't going back to sixth form. Instead I stayed at home, and I just saw the rest of the day out, went to sleep nice and early, woke up the next day and felt kind of like a little relieved actually that I wasn't having to go back to sixth form. I think that was weighing on me a little bit as well, but I still felt like a failure. I still didn't know what I wanted to do in my life, and things were just really awkward with my family. We weren't getting on, so I decided to move to my dad's house. And then when I went to my dad's house, within a couple of weeks I think it was, I ended up being an inpatient for the first time. The crisis team told me that I could be admitted and be observed and then be in a safe place, so to speak. So I decided to go along with it. Anyway guys, that's part 1. I'm going to stop this recording now and then record part 2 in just a moment.